The city wakes slowly beneath a veil of pale morning mist, its wooden rooftops stretching outward in quiet layers, untouched by the scale of history that is about to unfold. Narrow streets lie still, interrupted only by the distant sound of sandals brushing against packed earth and the soft echo of a temple bell carried through the damp air. From above, the settlement appears modest, almost fragile, a growing town built from timber, water, and intention. Yet this is Edo in the year 1600, standing at the edge of a transformation that will reshape an entire nation. Few who walk these streets at dawn understand the weight of the moment. Fewer still can see what this place is about to become. If you find yourself drawn into lost worlds and the quiet beginnings of great empires, consider following this journey, because what unfolds here is not just the story of a city, but the turning point of Japan itself. At the start of the 17th century, Japan is not yet unified. For over a century, the land has been defined by fragmentation, conflict, and ambition. The Sengoku period has shaped an entire generation of warriors and rulers, each seeking dominance in a landscape where power shifts constantly and loyalty is often temporary. Castles rise across the countryside, not as symbols of peace, but as centers of military strength. Armies move, alliances form and collapse, and survival depends on strategy as much as force. Edo exists within this world, but it is not yet its center. Compared to cities like Kyoto, with its imperial court, or Osaka, with its commercial strength, Edo is still emerging. Its importance lies not in tradition, but in possibility. That possibility has already been recognized by one man whose influence is beginning to reshape the future. Tokugawa Ieyasu, a daimyo who has spent years navigating the instability of the Sengoku era, has chosen Edo as his base. His decision is not accidental. He sees what others overlook, a location protected by natural geography, surrounded by fertile land, and connected through waterways that allow movement and control. Edo is not yet powerful, but it is positioned to become so. And in 1600, everything begins to align. The Battle of Sekigahara approaches, a conflict that will determine the balance of power across Japan. It is more than a military confrontation. It is the moment where decades of chaos will either continue or finally give way to order. When Ieyasu emerges victorious, he does not simply gain territory. He gains the foundation to unify the country under a single authority. And with that shift, Edo's future changes instantly. The city begins to grow, not by chance, but by design. At its center stands Edo Castle, expanding into one of the most formidable fortified complexes in Japan. Massive stone walls rise, surrounded by wide moats that reflect both strength and precision. Gates are constructed with careful planning, controlling access and reinforcing authority. This is not just a residence, it is the heart of a new political system. From here, power will radiate outward. Around the castle, the city organizes itself into layers that reflect a carefully structured society. Closest to the center are the residences of the samurai, the warrior class that has defined Japan's past and will now shape its future in a different way. These homes are not extravagant, but they are deliberate, placed according to rank, responsibility, and proximity to power. The presence of the samurai defines the tone of the city. Their movements are disciplined, their appearance controlled, their purpose clear. Yet even as they walk these streets, their role is beginning to change. Beyond the samurai districts, the city opens into areas filled with merchants and artisans. Shops line the streets, their wooden fronts displaying goods that sustain the growing population. Rice, tools, fabrics, and everyday necessities. Craftsmen work in open spaces, shaping materials with practiced skill, creating objects that reflect both function and tradition. The sounds of commerce begin to define the rhythm of Edo, replacing the distant echoes of battlefield conflict with the steady pulse of urban life. Water flows through the city as both a resource and a design element. Canals connect districts, allowing goods to move efficiently while also reinforcing the structure of the settlement. Bridges cross these waterways, linking neighborhoods and guiding movement through the city in ways that feel both natural and intentional. The presence of water gives Edo a sense of balance, grounding its rapid growth in a system that can sustain it. And still, beneath this order, the memory of conflict remains. Many of the samurai who now walk these streets have spent their lives in war. Their identities have been shaped by battle, by loyalty to lords who no longer hold the same power they once did. Now, as peace begins to take hold, their purpose must evolve. They are no longer needed as constant warriors, yet their presence remains essential. This tension creates a quiet shift within the city, a transformation not immediately visible, but deeply significant. Edo becomes a place where two eras overlap. The legacy of the Sengoku period lingers in the mindset of its people, while the emerging Tokugawa order begins to impose structure, stability, and long-term vision. This is not a sudden change, but a gradual one, unfolding in the design of the city, in the behavior of its inhabitants, and in the decisions made at its center. Roads began to extend outward, connecting Edo to other regions of Japan. Movement increases, not in the form of armies, but in the flow of people, goods, and information. The city's influence starts to expand, drawing attention from across the country. Daimyo from distant regions will soon be required to maintain a presence here, a policy that will transform Edo into a hub of political gravity. But in 1600, this system is only beginning to take shape. What exists now is the foundation, a city being built not only in wood and stone, but in intention and control. Standing within Edo at this moment, one might see a growing settlement filled with activity, structure, and quiet ambition. It would feel stable, even promising. But what is not immediately visible is how quickly this place will change. The decisions being made now, the structures being built, and the systems being introduced will transform Edo into something far beyond its current form. It will become the center of a unified Japan, a city that will grow in size, influence, and complexity until it surpasses anything that exists in the region. And yet, at this moment, it is still just beginning. A city of wood and water. A city shaped by the past but already moving toward a future that will redefine it completely. The transformation does not arrive with a single event, but unfolds gradually, almost quietly, as Edo begins to reshape itself under a new order. In the years following Tokugawa Ieyasu's victory at Sekigahara, the chaos that once defined Japan begins to recede, replaced by a structure that is both rigid and deliberate. Power is no longer scattered across competing warlords. It is centralized, controlled, and carefully maintained. And at the center of this new system stands Edo, growing not just as a city, but as the axis of an entire nation. What was once a strategic outpost begins to evolve into something far more complex, its streets filling with movement, its districts expanding, and its identity shifting from survival to stability. The samurai, once defined by the constant presence of war, now find themselves in a different role. Their swords remain at their sides, symbols of status and discipline, but their purpose is changing. In Edo, they become administrators, officials, and enforcers of a new kind of order. Their lives are governed by strict codes, not only of loyalty, but of behavior, appearance, and responsibility. The city reflects this transformation. The areas closest to Edo Castle remain reserved for the warrior class, their residences arranged with precision, reinforcing hierarchy through physical space. Movement within these districts is controlled, measured, and intentional. There is a sense of quiet authority, a recognition that power now exists, not in open conflict, but in structure and control. Beyond these districts, the merchant and artisan classes begin to expand in both number and importance. Though officially lower in status than the samurai, their role in sustaining the city becomes increasingly vital. Shops multiply along the streets, offering goods that range from essential food supplies to crafted items that reflect growing specialization and skill. Rice brokers, in particular, become central figures within the economy, their control over food distribution giving them influence that extends beyond their official rank. This subtle shift creates a layered society where power is not always visible in titles alone. Markets grow more organized, their layout reflecting both efficiency and social order. Certain streets become known for specific trades, textiles, tools, ceramics, creating zones of activity that define the rhythm of daily life. The sound of commerce replaces the memory of conflict. As voices rise in negotiation, tools strike against materials, and movement flows through the city with increasing confidence. Edo is no longer a place preparing for war. It is becoming a place designed for permanence. Water continues to play a central role in this transformation. The canal system expands, not only for transport, but as a means of organizing the city itself. Boats move steadily through these waterways, carrying goods from one district to another, connecting Edo internally while also linking it to the wider region. Bridges become points of convergence, where people, trade, and information intersect. The city begins to feel interconnected, its growth supported by systems that allow it to function on a larger scale. Yet beneath this sense of order, another system is taking shape. One that will define Edo more than any physical structure. The Tokugawa shogunate introduces policies designed to maintain control over the daimyo, ensuring that no single regional lord can challenge the central authority. One of the most significant of these is the requirement for daimyo to spend time in Edo, maintaining residences within the city while their families remain there as a form of guarantee. This system, known as Sankin Kotai, transforms Edo into a city of constant arrival and departure. Processions of retainers move along the roads, bringing wealth, resources, and influence into the city. Residences expand to accommodate these powerful figures, further increasing the scale and complexity of Edo's layout. The presence of these daimyo alters the atmosphere of the city. Edo is no longer just a political center. It becomes a stage where power is displayed, managed, and observed. Every movement carries meaning. Every structure reflects status. The city becomes a living representation of the Tokugawa order, where hierarchy is not only enforced, but visible in every detail. At the same time, life for ordinary people continues within this evolving system. Artisans refine their crafts, creating goods that support both daily life and the needs of the elite. Merchants navigate the boundaries of their social position, building networks that allow them to thrive despite restrictions. The population grows steadily, drawn by opportunity, stability, and the expanding influence of the city. Edo becomes a place where lives are built not on conflict, but on adaptation. Cultural life begins to take shape alongside this economic and political growth. Though still in its early stages, the foundations of what will later define Edo's identity, art, performance, and urban culture start to emerge. Storytelling, music, and visual arts find space within the city, reflecting the experiences of its inhabitants. These expressions are not yet dominant, but they signal a shift toward a society that values not only order, but also identity and creativity within that order. And still, the memory of the past remains. The samurai, though now administrators, carry with them the discipline and mindset of warriors. The structures of Edo, though designed for stability, are built upon the lessons of conflict. The peace that defines this new era is not accidental. It is constructed, maintained, and constantly reinforced. This creates a city that exists in balance. On the surface, Edo appears controlled, structured, and stable. But beneath that surface lies a system that must be continuously managed to prevent the return of chaos. The Tokugawa shogunate understands this, and its policies reflect a deep awareness of how fragile stability can be. As Edo grows, its identity becomes clearer. It is no longer simply a strategic location or a residence for a powerful leader. It is becoming the center of a new Japan, one defined not by fragmentation, but by unity under a single authority. The city's streets, districts, and systems all contribute to this transformation, creating a space where power is centralized and visible. Yet even as Edo strengthens, the question of what this new era will mean for those within it remains open. The samurai must redefine themselves. The merchants must navigate their rising influence within a rigid hierarchy. The population must adapt to a system that prioritizes order above all else. Edo is no longer a city preparing for change, it is a city living through it. And as this transformation continues, it becomes clear that what is happening within Edo is not isolated. It is part of a larger shift that will redefine Japan for generations. The era of constant war is ending, but in its place comes a new kind of structure, one that brings stability but also control. And within that balance, Edo continues to expand, carrying the weight of a future that is still unfolding. The transformation of Edo does not end with its rise. It deepens, settling into a rhythm that will define Japan for generations. What began as a city shaped by ambition and strategy now becomes something more enduring, a system that sustains itself through structure, discipline, and carefully maintained balance. By the early decades following 1600, Edo is no longer simply growing. It is stabilizing. The chaos of the Sengoku era has been replaced by a long, deliberate peace under the Tokugawa shogunate, and with that peace comes a new kind of pressure. The absence of war does not remove tension, it redirects it. The city must now hold together not through force, but through order, and that order must be constant. Within Edo, the daily rhythm of life becomes more predictable, yet more controlled. The samurai, once defined by the battlefield, fully transition into their roles as administrators and officials. Their identity evolves from warriors of action to guardians of a system. They enforce laws, oversee districts, and maintain the structure that keeps the city functioning. Yet, beneath this transformation lies a quiet conflict. The discipline of the warrior remains, but its purpose has shifted. The sword is no longer a tool of survival, but a symbol of status, of duty, of a past that still shapes the present. For many, this change is not easily reconciled. It creates a tension that is rarely spoken but deeply felt. Beyond the samurai districts, the merchant and artisan classes continue to expand, and with them a different kind of power emerges. Though officially positioned lower in the social hierarchy, their influence grows through the economy. Wealth begins to accumulate not through land or warfare, but through trade, craftsmanship, and the steady flow of goods within the city. This creates a subtle shift in the balance of society. The visible structure remains unchanged, samurai above, merchants below. But beneath that structure, a new dynamic forms. Influence begins to move in ways that are less defined by rank and more by function. Edo becomes a city where appearance and reality do not always align. The streets themselves reflect this complexity. What were once simple pathways now become defined districts, each with its own identity and purpose. Commercial areas grow more active, their markets expanding in both size and organization. Entertainment districts begin to take shape, offering spaces where people can step outside the rigid expectations of daily life. These areas, though regulated, introduce a new dimension to the city, one that balances structure with expression. The culture of Edo begins to emerge more clearly, shaped not only by authority, but by the people who live within it. Art, storytelling, and performance evolve as reflections of urban life, capturing moments of humor, struggle, and identity within a system that is otherwise tightly controlled. The city becomes not just a center of power, but a center of culture, where the experiences of its inhabitants find form and meaning. Yet this growth does not come without limits. The Tokugawa system is designed to maintain stability above all else, and that stability depends on control. Movement is regulated. Social roles are defined. Change is managed carefully, ensuring that no single element disrupts the balance that has been created. Edo thrives within these boundaries, but it is also shaped by them. The very system that allows it to grow also restricts how that growth can occur. This creates a city that is both dynamic and contained, expanding in influence while remaining structured in form. As the decades pass, Edo's transformation becomes undeniable. What was once a modest settlement is now one of the largest cities in the world, its population rising, its influence extending across Japan. Roads connect it to distant regions, carrying not armies but processions, goods, and information. The Sankan-Kotai system continues to draw daimyo into the city, reinforcing its role as the political center of the nation. Edo is no longer emerging, it has arrived. But within this arrival lies a deeper question. What does it mean for a society built on the legacy of war to exist in prolonged peace? The answer is not simple. The stability of the Tokugawa era brings prosperity, growth, and cultural development. It allows cities like Edo to flourish in ways that would not have been possible during constant conflict. Yet it also creates a system where change is slow, where roles are fixed, and where tension must be managed rather than released. This balance defines Edo at its height, a city that is both powerful and restrained, vibrant and controlled. Looking back at Edo in 1600, it is difficult to fully grasp how much would change and how much would remain the same. The wooden streets, the flowing canals, the structured districts, all of these elements persist, even as the city grows beyond recognition. The foundations laid in that moment of transition continue to shape what follows. Edo becomes Tokyo, a city that will one day stand among the largest and most influential in the world. Yet within its modern form, traces of its past remain. Echoes of the systems, structures, and decisions that defined its earliest transformation. The story of Edo is not simply one of growth, but of adaptation. It is a city that learned to move from chaos to order, from war to peace, from fragmentation to unity. It did not abandon its past, but reshaped it, carrying forward elements that could support its future. And in doing so, it became something greater than a capital. It became a symbol of how a society can redefine itself without losing its core identity. Standing in Edo at the beginning of the 17th century, one would see a city in motion, filled with purpose, shaped by ambition, and grounded in a system that is only just beginning to take form. It would feel stable, even permanent. But what gives this moment its true significance is not what is visible, but what is unfolding beneath the surface. Because Edo is not just becoming a city, it is becoming an era. And in that transformation, it reveals something timeless about the nature of history itself. That even the most structured systems, the most carefully built societies, are always in motion, always evolving, always shaped by the balance between control and change.